He said, I thought it was a power outage. So I'm running around looking for a power switch to turn the lights on. And I start hearing this cacophonous sound of laughter, evil laughter. And I finally yell out, "Shut up! Where am I?" And the voice comes back, "You're in hell."
What?
Angels and demons fighting in the deep end. I turn all my weakness into something I believe in. Every scar, every doubt, that's fuel when I speak. Welcome to the battle where the broken get free. Yeah.
Alrighty. Dr. Bryan Hickox, welcome to Angels and Demons podcast. So good to have you on this show.
Good to be here.
Dr. Bryan Hickox is an accomplished executive producer with over 50 years in the entertainment industry. He began his career managing radio, TV stations, and co-founded several production companies, including Image Transform Inc., Milestone Productions, Hickox and Daniel Productions. He has produced numerous TV movies, series, pilots, specials, earning multiple Emmy Awards, 2 George Peabody Awards, and over 100 other accolades. The key highlights of this man's career are unreadable, but I'll begin. He produced 71 movies with 16 Emmy nominations and 7 wins. Developed and produced a high-rated network movie from 1987 to 1990. Executive produced the award-winning film Soldiers of Change, screened at Cannon's Film Festival. Produced The Perfect Wave, a globally released feature film starring Scott Eastwood and Cheryl Ladd. Produced the live Global Day of Prayer, telecast in 2011, broadcast in 212 countries to an estimated worldwide audience of 300 million people. He is partners in building of a digital Christian platform, Mission Wake, with its own publishing company, record company, and artist development company, a television news network, and a television studio that for the last 9 years has been shooting and using media movements to change U.S. cities. The series is set to air in the first quarter of next year. He is currently producing a high-profile limited streaming series entitled The Network, also due to premiere next year. Today, we are specifically going to be focusing, because as you can see, there are so many accomplishments by Dr. Bryan Hickox on one feature film that really, because we live in Atlantic Beach, Florida, called The Perfect Wave, starring Scott Eastwood and Cheryl Ladd. Dr. Bryan Hickox, take us away. What got you into the film industry and what inspired you to do all this amazing accomplishments?
Well, I kind of grew up. My dad was the vice president of NBC in New York at 30 Rockefeller Plaza. And every Friday night, my mother and I would travel in on the Long Island Railroad to meet my dad for dinner Friday night, and then we would go to a Broadway show. 40 weeks a year for 10 years. That's 400 Broadway shows. As a kid, that was a gift my mom and dad gave me. And so I kind of grew up with an itch. And my dad, being at NBC, sent out some letters to television stations knowing that I wanted to get into television. And one of them, KTAR in Phoenix, Arizona, which stood for Keep Taking the Arizona Republic, was owned by the newspaper at one time. When it went on the air, it was the first station on the air in Phoenix in June 21st, 1921, I think. And I went to work for them first as an on-air guy, and I went into the manager of the station at one point in time, this young kid knowing nothing, and told him he was crazy for simulcasting AM and FM. So he said, "Okay, smartass, if you're so smart, you take the TV station, you take the FM station." So I was running around doing store openings and street closings, and I mean, it was just a zoo, but I sure learned the broadcast industry. And they gave me an old Bolex to put in my car, because at that time, all the news was on 16 millimeter film. So they said, if you run into a fire or an accident or something, shoot some film for the news department. So I kind of started playing with that camera, and I got fairly proficient with it. And I said, well, listen, why don't you have me shoot commercials? So I started writing commercials, which was great training ground, because I found out what the hot button words were and the cold button words. And I shot commercials and edited probably 400 or 500 commercials.
Can you give us an example just on that? What would be a hot button? What would be a cold button?
Well, it depends on what you're selling.
Okay.
But you don't buy something, you invest in something, because the word investment implies a return. Buying doesn't. So there are words like that. In writing commercials, you kind of get attuned to. So anyway, and then I came back to California, and I started running radio and television stations. And that was incredible training. Just finding out what the audience likes. And so I started producing shows early on in my career. A guy by the name of George Slaughter gave me my start. He produced Sleuth and a bunch of really successful feature films. He needed a head of production for his company, so he hired me. I was in the Directors Guild training program, and the first film we did with Slaughter was Thou Shalt Not Commit Adultery with Louise Fletcher, and the director of that was Mel Delbert Mann. He was at that time president of the Directors Guild. So in scouting locations in Hawaii, he said, "Bryan, you don't know this about me, but your dad hired me to direct certain U.S. Steel shows, the U.S. Steel Hour on television at 30 Rock, and my wife Ann and I used to drive out to the house, and when we got too inebriated to drive back, we would take you out of your bunk bed and put you on the couch, and we would stay over till the next morning, and we would drive out." And he said, "I'd love to sponsor you to get into the Directors Guild."
That's a big deal.
So that was a God wink.
Yes.
So Mel Delbert and I got into the Directors Guild that way. And once in the guild, I worked up through a unit production manager, so I really kind of understood the production management of a show, but I wasn't that great in terms of the creative. And I got a partner. I met a guy who became a very close friend of mine by the name of Jay Daniel. And Jay went on to produce Moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. And he's extremely good with writers. And I would sit in writing in sessions with him, he and I, because we had our Hickox Daniel production company. And he would sit in and writers would say, "Oh my God, you just pointed out 5 flaws with my thing I never knew." And he was terrific. So I never developed those muscles in terms of creative.
That is terrific.
Until I separated and went in producing for myself. And then I started, and it's a long process before you can trust your own instincts creatively. And so I've done a lot of secular work, and I've been really fortunate because I've done a lot of church work, which has been, for me, a lot more rewarding than the secular work in a lot of ways. And I was in South Africa, in Cape Town. I got there because an evangelist by the name of Jared Davidoff called me and said, "I'd like to do a series about what it takes to be an evangelist." And so I flew in and helped him write the screenplay and produce and direct it.
So at the time, just to rewind a little bit, at the time you're in California and you're flying to South Africa?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
So I get to South Africa, and I'm producing this, and one day I'm having dinner in a restaurant, and this guy comes over and he says, "My name's Bruce McDonald. I'm a commercial director. I'm going to do my first feature film, and you're going to produce it for me." I said, "Wait a minute. I don't know you. I don't know the project. This is crazy."
Right in your hands.
He said, "Here's the script. Read it. And if you want to do it, you can produce it."
Wow. What's that like, reading the script to doing it?
So that was The Perfect Wave.
Right here in front of you, you can see The Perfect Wave.
He had met this 33-year-old gentleman by the name of Ian McCormack. And Ian and his best friend had traveled around the world searching out the perfect wave. They were both surfers. And he came from Christchurch, New Zealand. That's where Ian's parents are to this day. And so he went with his friend first across Australia to the off the outback and to Bruce's Beauties, that great surfing beach. And then he went all around the world, ended up in South Africa, and then ultimately ended up in the island of Mauritius.
Wow.
And
That's pretty cool.
he basically, Ian, when he got to the island of Mauritius, he gets a call from his father, and he said, "Listen, your brother is getting engaged and would like you to come back for the wedding to be the best man." And Ian said, "Well, listen, I'll do some night dives for lobster and get enough money to get a ticket, and I'll be there. Tell him 6 weeks from now, I'll be there at the wedding." So he goes out that night, lobster diving,
That's awesome.
and he gets stung by a 5 box jellyfish.
What?
And the box jellyfish is the second most lethal thing in the
Yes,
planet.
yeah. I'm well aware of that, yes.
You get stung by one tentacle,
It's
about
big deal.
5,000 volts. You got 5 minutes to live.
Wow.
He gets stung by 5 of them, and on his arm, and all of the
God,
burn marks.
lobster was the last thing on his mind after that.
Burn marks are all on his arm. He surfaces to the water, and a 16-year-old son of a local fisherman who rowed him out to do the dive saw immediately what was the problem, and then he knew he'd been stung by some of invisibles, which is what they
Yes.
call the box jellyfish. And he got him in the boat, pulled him up, got him in the boat, got him to shore. When he got to shore, he dumped him on the sand and went out to get his father, who was diving, to tell him what had happened. And as Ian laid his head down on the sand, he heard the voice say, "Don't close your eyes. If you close your eyes, you'll never open them again." And he looked around and there was no one there. He didn't know where that voice
Well,
came
now
from.
I know what to do if I get bit by those. Don't close your eyes.
So one side of his body was already starting to have the death rattles. He crawls on the sand to a cul-de-sac where 5 Japanese taxi drivers are there with their taxis. And he appeals to them, "Somebody take me to the hospital." And they look at his arm and they think those are drug.
Like a heroin addict, like
A
drug
heroin
marks.
addict.
Yeah.
They think, and they don't want any part of him. So he pleads with this one driver, and the driver says, "Okay, I'll take you." And halfway to the Victoria Hospital, he's now in serious death rattles, and the driver looks at him and doesn't want him to die in his cab. Pulls the cab over, opens the door, and kicks him out, and takes off. Well, it's close enough to the youth hostel where his friends were staying. They saw this happen. They heard it. So they call the ambulance from the hospital that comes to pick him up. They pick him up, get him to the hospital,
Wow. That's
and
incredible.
the doctors work on him, and they try to resuscitate him, and he dies in the hospital.
No way.
So now, to hear Ian tell the story, he said, "I thought it was a power outage. So I'm running around looking for a power switch to turn the lights on. And I start hearing this cacophonous sound of laughter, evil laughter. And I finally yell out, 'Shut up! Where am I?' And the voice comes back, 'You're in hell.'
What?
And he said he looked up, and it was like when he was a child, the sun came in his room in a shaft of light, and it looked like that shaft of light, and he felt he was floating up in the beam of light towards the source of the light, and he felt waves of love, and he said, 'I've never felt that good in my life.'" Now you got to understand about Ian McCormack.
Yes.
At 12 years old,
Ian McCormack.
he went to church. His mother took him to church to go through a confirmation ceremony. He prayed to God. God never showed up, so he turned into an atheist.
Now, this is the guy that gave you the script for The Perfect Wave.
No, this is the guy of the stories about
Okay.
Ian McCormack.
Okay. Ian McCormack. Okay.
Bruce McDonald was the director who
Okay.
asked me to do it. So at 12 years old, he rejects the church. But every night, his mother tucks him into bed and prays the Lord's Prayer with him. So he's now dying in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and the only prayer he knows is because he's had no contact with the church, the Lord's Prayer. He is now praying the Lord's Prayer in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, and simultaneously at that exact hour, his mother, who was doing dishes in Christchurch, New Zealand, heard a voice that said, "Pray for your son."
Wow.
So she went up to her bedroom on a fetal position,
praying for her son.
She's crying out to God for her son. So he gets to the hospital, he dies, and again, to hear him tell it, he thought of he's running around looking for a light switch. He hears this cacophonous laughter. "Where are you? You're in hell." He looks up and he feels himself floating up to the source of the light. And as he gets closer, he hears a voice. And what he doesn't realize at the time, but does later, it's Jesus. And the glorified Christ is asking Ian, "Do you want to go back?" And Ian says, I don't want to go back. I've never felt this good. I called out in the ambulance. He said, "The minute you called out to me, I forgave you."
Wow.
And
that's incredible.
And it was like a mind blower. And he said, "If I go back now, my mother will think I've died and gone to hell. I got to go back to tell her." And Christ said to him, "Ian, look behind you." And he turned around and he looked behind him, and there was his father and his mother, his brother and his brother's fiancée.
The whole family.
And lines of hundreds of people. And he said, "Who are all those people?" And Christ said, "Those are people who don't know me, Ian. And if you go back, you must tell them about me."
That's incredible.
And so ultimately, after a little more conversation, Christ said, "Open your eyes, Ian." And he opened his eyes, and he was in a body bag in the hospital, and a nurse was putting down the time of death and all the stuff you need, the paperwork you need to do. She saw him get up, and she dropped her tray and ran out of the hospital, and Ian got up and walked out of the hospital.
That's incredible. Wow.
And he was on the set when we started shooting.
Wow.
I mean, you don't get a chance to talk very often to people who stood before Christ. It was having him around was just amazing.
So to have that spiritual anointing on this film, my God, I mean, that's just insight to, The Perfect Wave. Talk about a spiritual blessing and anointing that it was meant to be.
It was extraordinary. It really was.
That's incredible.
We had intercessors on our set, a husband and wife on our set, praying every day. Every day we needed sunshine. It was there. It never rained. And when it rained, we were indoors on our schedule. It was amazing. And that intercessor, incidentally, there's another interesting story. His name is Dave Walker. And Dave Walker was a doctor. And in his residency, he gets a call one night, and he said, Are you the intern on duty? And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, come up to the operating theater. I need somebody here right away," because he was an anesthesiologist. And so Dave Walker goes up, and it's the first ever open heart surgery. He was the anesthesiologist on it, and he went on to become the head of the anesthesiology department at Grote Schuur Medical Center, the largest hospital in Cape Town.
Wow. That's
but
incredible.
He was our intercessor, and he prayed every day. And the things that happened on that set were miraculous. It was
divine intervention.
It was, and it was really an amazing experience working on that film.
Dr. Bryan Hickox, I know our audience is, they are huge Clint Eastwood fans. They're big Scott Eastwood fans. Obviously, Scott Eastwood has played in so many movies, from Fast and Furious to you name it, he's been in it. How did you get Scott Eastwood to play in The Perfect Wave?
I called him. I called his agent, Joanne, something, I forget her name now, but I called her and I said, "I'd like to have a lunch with Scott Eastwood. I want to offer him a film." And she said, "Okay." And at the lunch, I said, I told him the story. And he said, "I'll do your film on one condition. I was raised in Hawaii, and I'm a very proficient surfer. I want to do all my own stunts. If you let me do that, I'll do your film.
How did that make you feel?
Well, great. I mean,
Were you a little nervous? I mean, of his surfing skills? I mean, because it's called The Perfect Wave.
I got him almost a year before we did the film.
Okay, so you were able to really...
And I didn't have a mother yet. And I auditioned a whole bunch of probably 30 or 40 really well-known actresses. And I got Cheryl Ladd, and Cheryl made us cry. We did a Zoom.
So Cheryl Ladd is the other, is the lady in the film that played...
She is his mother.
His mother.
Who's crying upstairs to God to save her son.
Yes.
Yeah. And so ultimately, Cheryl Ladd came on the set, and the second day of shooting, we went out to dinner. And she said, Bryan, I'm going to give you my fee back to make this film. I think it's such a worthwhile film, and it has such a worthwhile message. And she was an absolute dream and a delight to work with. She was, I mean, the best. And because we worked with a couple of non-professional people, and she just tutored them, and she was wonderful. So it was a wonderful
experience. It's nice
experience.
to have those kind of people around you.
And Rachel Hendricks had come out from
I was going to ask you
October
that.
Baby. And she's a brilliant actress, and she was the love interest, Scott's love interest in the film. It was just a delight to work with, and there were some really humorous incidents. Ian said to me right before he came, now you keep in mind this is 30 years after he died. He was the head of the King of Kings Church in London. He was the senior pastor there.
Wow.
I attended there quite a few times in London. And the guy was just a brilliant preacher and on fire for the Lord, and just really terrific guy. And he said that right before I came here for your filming, I went to the doctor because I had come from my family on vacation in the Seychelles, and I got bitten. And the doctor said, geez, you don't want to fly with that. You could die. And his response was, I've already died. It's not everything it's cracked up to be. So,
what?
I mean, he had a great...
Quite a character.
Oh, he had a wonderful human analysis of all of this. But to spend the day with him was unbelievable.
Oh, it sounds like it.
Yeah, it's just to hear the stories and his knowledge of the Bible. It was great.
So what was the most, like, when you're putting a movie together, this, like The Perfect Wave, and you have someone like Scott Eastwood, like, what impressed you most about him while filming this?
He has had so much time on sets, he's almost a second producer. If somebody didn't come out of a makeup trailer on time, he'd bang on the door and make them come out. I mean, he's like having a second producer on the set.
That sounds like his dad a little bit. Clint Eastwood, it was just like that, wasn't he?
Well, it's very funny. Clint Eastwood, Scott Eastwood is the illegitimate son of an affair that Clint had with an airline stewardess. And as a result, after birth, Clint didn't want to do anything. There was not a real bond there. 16 years had gone by before they had really had any time together. And
you mean Scott Eastwood, it really affected their relationship.
When he got this script, he went back to Clint and ran lines with him and
rehearsed stuff.
It was a reuniting of father and son. Yeah, it was great.
You guys hear that? That not only The Perfect Wave reunited the relationship between Scott Eastwood and Clint Eastwood, son and father. I don't know what is more powerful. Just that. I mean, that's just one small impact that you made. But what is more powerful than bringing a son back to his father?
Well, the fact that Ian came back, and with the incredible love that God has for all of us, and preached that message having lived it, I loved his sermons. I loved going to church when I was in London, and I've been to London a lot to get actors and hire effects houses and every time I'd go, it was wonderful. Now he's left now, and he resigned his leadership role in King of Kings Church, and he's back with his parents who are dying. They're elderly in Christchurch, New Zealand. But he and his wife and his family went back to Christchurch.
Wow, to Christchurch. Now, when you do, because, I mean, we're talking about you produce 71 movies, and here's just one example of your success. You know, here I am on this podcast, Angels and Demons podcast, and, you know, what advice can you give to a young man that's starting a podcast out that is just starting, where you gave me an example where the guy said, you know, almost shut up to you and just took you into this role? What advice? You've obviously been extremely successful. You've done and implemented.
I don't know how you measure success.
Well, I mean, like in a
if producing a lot of films is success.
No. We have here. We just said how many people were praying at one time. You produced the live global day of prayer telecast in 2011 with 212 countries to an estimated worldwide audience of over 300 million. That's a success.
That's another very interesting story. I don't know whether they have time for it,
but I mean, would you not say that as success? You said, how do you measure it? I just measured it.
I've been blessed with some wonderful opportunities. Let me put it that way.
Yes, that is success. So how do you tell a young man or someone that's starting out, brand new into podcasting, how do you become successful? What are the keys you've found to be successful in filming?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, because the industry has changed so radically. I've never done a podcast.
Well, I mean, like when you were putting this film together, what pieces did you find you needed to be most successful?
Put what film together?
The Perfect Wave. Like, how do you do that? How do you put a film like that together?
You go in and read the script, and the script will dictate to you the size of the crew you need, the quality of people you need. Do you have other surfers in the film? Do you have to have meetings with them about how this film is going to be made? Do you have... do you want to rewrite the screenplay to make it more cinematic? Do you, you know,
where do you get the money for that?
You start bringing people in to interview directors of photography and sound guys and editors, and you go through that process of putting the team together to make it, and then you become the administrator.
So where do you get the budget or the money to produce the film?
Well, that's 10 podcasts from now.
Give me a short version of it. Like, for example, because we're talking about The Perfect Wave.
I'm producing a television series, a 6-episode television series right now for streamers, right? That didn't exist. No streamers existed when I started in this business. No podcasts existed. That's why I have no class I can hold for guys that are getting into this business now, because I don't know it anymore. I mean, I come out of scripted drama. I'm now doing a reality show, a documentary. My entire crew is 7 people. I'm traveling to 18 countries, 12 different currencies in 13 weeks of shooting. It's an entirely different process now. So I'm having to learn from people who've done it.
Understood.
But you could get money. The money for this show is 24 investors who all have businesses here in Jacksonville. And they put up the money, and they locked up this guy who's the star of our series. His name is David Klinkenberg. He was a virtuoso violinist at 4 years of age. His parents, rather than sending him to a public school, sent him to a computer programming school where he learned almost to a savant level that he had a talent for recognizing patterns that other people didn't recognize.
That's incredible.
I mean, first, dragons. 12,000 years before Christ, people were worshiping dragons on one face, and then all the way across the world, they were all doing dragons. And so what coordinated all that? He got really fascinated in patterns. As he played the violin, he became the number 1 or 2 virtuoso violinist in the world, traveled 120 countries, sold out auditoriums everywhere, been seen by 70 million people on television. And he has unlocked the Da Vinci Code, the real Da Vinci Code, not the Dan Brown version where Jesus gets married to Mary Magdalene and has kids and none of that. This is the real code.
That's incredible.
And we're interviewing on the series, we're interviewing the world's foremost experts on Da Vinci and it's a long story.
No, I mean, that's exactly, I'm just trying to give viewers an insight to something that is absolutely incredible. You have, obviously, to put a film like this together, there's a lot of moving parts.
Oh, yeah.
What was the biggest blessing from producing this film first?
Well, the hardest part was surfers. I worked with, these were the top probably 10 surfers in the world. And you're driving along and they see a good wave, it's like herding cats. They're into the surf and you can't get them out. So, I mean,
they're gone.
Oh, my goodness. It was awful trying to herd them. So that was a real education.
So that was the hardest part. What was the biggest blessing while filming this?
The letters we've received from people who've watched this that has transformed their lives.
Give me an example of one letter that you received that really moved your life.
Well, not on this, but on a film I did early on about a young man who started stealing things in a hobby shop. And then I was producing a talk show, 90 episodes of a talk show. And one of my line producers came in and said, listen, we've got this guy who has just died in prison, Atmore, Alabama. And he's, before he died, he made a videotape. Would you like to see the videotape? And the videotape starts and he says, my name is Dave Allen, whatever. And in 4 days, I'm going to die. And I have some things to tell you kids. And if you want to listen, you'd be smart to listen. And it talks about how he grew up. He's one of children of six kids. They had loving parents, communicated. He got into trouble and teamed up with a guy that was really bad news. They held up and shot a loan officer at a loan company in front of the father's children, and they got going to the electric chair as a result of it. And he said, if you kids want to listen. So I said to the chaplain of the Atmore, Alabama prison, I'll fly you out. What's going on with this tape? And he said, well, we've been approached by ABC Nightline to air it. And I said, what's the purpose of the tape?
That's a good question.
The purpose of the tape is to get kids not to, and I said, no kids watch Nightline. Come out, let's do a after school special. We do those. So my partner, Jay Daniel, and I flew the chaplain out from the prison, and he puts the tape in, and the first couple of minutes of the tape is, my name is such and such, and if you kids are smart, you're going to listen. And I said, freeze the tape right there. And I called Judy at the head vice president at CBS who did after school specials, and I said, I've got this tape. Let me play you the first couple of minutes, and I got a production order to go do the after school special. I made the after school special, and we got a letter first of all, to get the rights to his life, I had to approach the mother. So I flew down to Atmore and knocked on her door.
Atmore,
Alabama.
Okay.
She slammed the door in my face. She said, how dare you try and, take my son's life. And,
how'd that make you feel?
well, I'm used to getting rejected. In this business, there's a fair amount of rejection you got to live through.
Yeah, thick skin.
So I called her back a couple of days later and I said, listen, your son wanted to reach kids. The only offer on the table to air his tape is from Nightline, and no kids watch Nightline. And I talked to her, and she said, okay, come to the house. I came to the house, and about 2 hours later, she signed the consent agreement and then went away. Now, after the show aired, before it aired, I sent her a copy. And she wrote me a letter Matter of fact, I'll send you a copy of the letter.
Hey, that would be awesome. Thank you.
And Betty said, I don't know how you captured what I said to my son before he died, but you captured it perfectly. And I mean, it's
really moved
it's
you.
the most beautiful letter. And then we found a guy, an auto dealer in Miami, and he would take every summer and he would go around to high schools preaching the gospel to kids. And he would get them to sign a card saying, I'm going to stay out of trouble for the next 12 months.
That's a big deal.
He said, do you have a 16 millimeter copy of that show? And I said,
Yes.
I'll have one made and sent to you. He took it around that summer and got 17,000 kids to sign a card that they were going to stay out of trouble. So that's what you can do with a film.
That's great. You know, I was just about to approach that. I was like, because you've been in the film industry, I mean, you shared that you had the opportunity as a kid to witness and see 400 Broadway shows in New York. Is that correct?
Yeah, but you know,
It's an escape. I mean, this is mental health, podcast, and you've provided an opportunity for people. Life is hard, Dr. Bryan Hickox, and you've provided an opportunity for people to kind of, for moments, experience kind of like an escape.
I saw Mary Martin in Peter Pan as a kid. And she came to the apron of the stage and sat there and said, everybody stand up and maybe you can save the life of Tinkerbell. And I watched a performer capture an audience. And that left a very deep impact on me. What media could do to change people's lives and their perception of reality.
100%.
Man.
That's what I was getting at, because there was something in your youth that really hook, line, and sinker got you. It got you so passionate about what you do.
I don't think it fueled the passion as much as my dad was in the industry and could get me a job.
Okay.
But
so you learned a lot from your dad.
I went into that job with that background.
Okay.
And as I realized and I worked more in the industry and found, wow, what we're doing into people's...
What did your dad exactly do?
He was the director of station relations, which is very much what the word implies. NBC was a network. They had stations all around the country.
So he worked for NBC?
He worked for NBC. So he would travel to those stations to promote good relations with the mother network.
In what part of New York?
Well, the NBC is located at 30 Rockefeller
No, I mean
Plaza.
where you grew up with your
I was
father.
in Long Island.
Long Island, New York. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Manhasset, Long Island. Anyway, when I got into the business and started fooling around with commercials and then drama, I realized the impact that tube into people's living rooms has. I mean, that's a sacred honor.
It is.
And,
it really is.
And a lot of the directors and producers don't give a damn. They'll put anything in there. Matter of fact, I've had people tell me it's a sewer pipe into our living room.
No. It's the opposite.
Yeah, I believe it is.
It's the opposite. It gives, most people aren't able to, they go work 8 to 5. Life is hard. And we're talking about Angels and Demons podcast. We're talking about mental health. And this enables people to, for a second in life, have this moment where they feel like they're not burdened by everything. Almost like going to church for an hour. You have this moment where all of a sudden your focus isn't on the problems and the need and making the bread, but you have that opportunity to relax and enjoy. And you gave the example of Peter Pan. It influenced you. It put a seed in you to where you saw how film can be positive, can be influential in people's lives.
And let me tell you, Vincent, when Graham Power came to the hotel I was staying at in Cape Town, he was the guy that did the Global Day of Prayer, and he told me his story, and he asked me to be involved in doing this television show. God gave him a set of instructions in 2000 to go back to Cape Town where he lived. He was on his 77-foot yacht in Mallorca. He owned 44 companies that all dealt with construction, everything from residential to stadiums to businesses. And he said that God gave him a set of instructions, and he came back to Cape Town. One of the instructions was to get the largest rugby stadium, which sat 45,000 people, Newlands Soccer Stadium, and fill it with Christian believers. And you're not allowed to advertise any of the speakers or any of the music groups, because this is all about celebrating Jesus.
That's incredible.
And he went around knocking on church doors, and they said, well, is it conservative or is it liberal or what denomination? He said, I don't know. God gave me some instructions. So they all said no. And one night he's in a Bible study, and a little diminutive Afrikaans woman said, if God gave these instructions to Dr. Power, then we're going to go out and make it happen. And she went around to women's groups, and
very influential.
June 21st of 2001, 55,000 people showed up at Newlands Soccer Stadium, an overflow crowd of 10,000.
God, gave you goosebumps.
For the first Global Day of Prayer. God said after that first day, I want you to go to 9 stadiums in Cape Town and do it again. And he did, and filled 9 stadiums. Then it was, I want you to do throughout the continent of Africa. So
we're talking 212 countries to an estimated worldwide audience of over 300 million?
It was the first time a United States city had been the host to the Global Day of Prayer. And when we did it, it went up on 8 different satellites to approximately an audience of 300 million. And you think about that.
Did you hear this? The gates of heaven opened up.
We had people from 35 different countries talk in their native language with, on the screen, an American, an English, as they prayed around the world. I mean, it was a remarkable.
You know what? I'd love to know what happened on that day. When on that day there was that much prayer, what happened on that day?
I don't know.
I would love to know that. Wouldn't that be fascinating to go back?
Larry Ross, who was the head of PR for Billy Graham for 35 years, came into the trailer, and Larry and I are very close friends, came into the trailer and he said, Bryan, I've been at hundreds of worship services. I've never seen anything as impactful as what went up on the satellite.
Wow, what a compliment. What a compliment.
It was
that's
the labor of a whole bunch of people.
This is Dr. Bryan Hickox. I've got to get this out of you. You have such an accomplishment here. Give me some tangible things of how to be successful. What are some keys that you found through all this experience, your life experience of where you are now? What are two? Give me at least 2 critical pieces of advice of be successful. I know you said in podcasting.
Surround yourself with people that are more talented than you are.
Okay.
Because they'll all make you look good.
Okay. Okay. 1,
so
2.
That's number 1.
Number 1.
Number 2, keep humble.
Keep humble.
Yeah, yeah.
So you said you're
no better than any member of your crew. So just get on their level. Don't talk down to them.
Amen. Amen. I love that. I really do. Be a servant. Have a servant's mind,
Yep.
and do not be to a point where you're not coachable. A great friend of mine, said, the higher the pastor got in elevation in a church, the less coachable. Dr. Chuck Coker, a dear friend of mine, said, the less coachable they become as the higher they get. And so you nailed it. You just nailed it there.
Well,
so that's 2.
Listen to Chuck. He's a man of great wisdom.
Oh man, is he ever? He is a gift from heaven itself. But you have to tell me this. You have to tell me, is the third thing is you said you don't know about success in this industry, but you do. You do. What is in grabbing? If you were here in my seat right now, what would you be doing and what would you not be doing to inspire and make such an influence like this?
I think you're on the right track by interviewing people in the industry. I think that that's a great learning experience for you, And I think if you can get them to help you as you develop projects yourself, that's all good. You just need to or surround yourself with people better than you are, and you'll shine.
Okay, so those are the three things, because I know that there's no way you are going to convince me today. And like I said, if I'm a gambling man and I roll dice like this, you're not going to convince me in any way that you do not have something to give to this generation today. You have so much to give to this generation today. You bring more than you think. And I have so much respect for you for that, because you don't end up with all this stuff because you're a lazy ass.
Well, I think the most enjoyment I get now is when churches ask me to come give my testimony, because I've been really blessed, and through no fault of my own or through nothing I've done. And it's just, God loves us. And when we bend to that will, all kinds of doors open up.
Was there any point in all this where you're on your back looking up? Or was it just all daisies? What was it?
No, I have been on my back. I went, after having a number of very successful businesses, I came to Jacksonville and I had a barbecues galore store, because it was going to be my hedge in case the unions went out on strike again. And it went belly up. It's the first time I went through bankruptcy, and it was the most humiliating experience I've ever had in my life, and it was the biggest blessing because it reordered everything in my life. When you're on your back looking up, God looks pretty good.
Yeah, amen to that. And what did that and I don't mean to peel a scab or anything, but what did you gain from that really changed the way that you think about life?
It reordered every one of my priorities. What's important? Money was no longer important. Touching people's lives was important. How do I do that? I mean, that one bankruptcy experience reordered everything in my life to the betterment. I mean, I'm an entirely different person than I was before the bankruptcy.
And that is something that anyone can face. I know many people that have gone through it, and it really
when
is.
When you have the bankruptcy
yes.
attorney enter your home and look and say that furniture has to go, that has to go. Oh, your wife's wedding ring. Give me that. That goes. I mean, I was so humiliated. It was unbelievable.
They can do that during a bankruptcy, come in and take all your stuff?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Part of the process.
I did not know that. So, Dr. Bryan Hickox, I mean, thank you for coming on and sharing all that you've shared.
Glad to.
I feel like, like you said, you could do 100 podcasts. I mean, there are so many key highlights of your career. But, I mean, to know that you produced a film that meant a lot to me, for you to be so kind to come on and share about this, it means so much to me. And one last question I have for you is, did you ever have the opportunity to meet Clint Eastwood?
Never.
Okay, just his son.
Yep.
But through meeting Scott, did you find anything in him that really that resembled Clint Eastwood?
Well, sure. I mean, there's a lot of Clint in Scott. I mean, there's no question about that.
So as an individual, like on a scale of 1 to 10, why is he being so successful today when this was early?
He's a good actor. I mean, he relates to the material. He does a really good job. And he's, like I said, like a second producer on the set. He's extraordinarily helpful, and you don't fool him because he's been there. And that's wonderful.
How was that working with him? It just made the job probably so much better?
It made it better. We had our moments, but listen, it was a blessed experience.
Yes, I can tell. And it's blessed a lot of people that have seen this film, and for you to share the inspiration behind it, of what went into it. It's just incredible, because there was a divine intervention from God shining down upon this movie so that it could come through the film and bless people and encourage them, because what a story.
But you never know that until the film's out and it's had a chance to do that, and you start getting fan mail and stuff like that. you realize.
Well, like the little boy in the film when his mom said,
Yep.
he said to his mom, I don't know if I believe in Jesus. And he was young. And that's a very, very difficult, conversation to have with your parent, with a kid that young, you know? So that was a very powerful moment. I love how you put that in the film because it drew a lot of attention.
The boy that we hired to play that young boy of Ian McCormack was the director's son.
No way.
Oh, it was great.
That's incredible. Now, that's some special insight to leave us with. That was his son.
Yeah.
And he did a fabulous job. Everyone in the movie did a fabulous job.
Thank you so much for having me.
Listen, I'm telling you, thank you so much, Dr. Bryan Hickox.
Well, it's a pleasure being had.
I'm telling you, for our listeners, what are some last words that you would give them that whether they're going through bankruptcy, whether they're in the middle of life, whether they're at the highest peaks, what are some last words that you would leave them with to really keep them going? Because this is about mental health, with keeping mental health at the forefront. What advice or any insight would you give them?
Just challenge your belief structure. God is so amazing and so loves us and is so for us that when you lose hope, you've lost everything.
So when you lose, I've been there, in parts of my life, I've been through some very dark times where you lose hope. What do you do when you lose hope?
Pray.
And then if you're not feeling better and you're praying and you're losing hope and you feel like you're going down to that point where you were talking about,
just keep praying.
Keep praying,
and God will answer prayer. I am a living testimony of that.
Well, I mean, you did this 212 country assessment, a worldwide audience of 300 million people praying, so you have seen a divine intervention with prayer.
And I didn't deserve that. I mean, that was God opening a door. And the results of those things are so wonderful. God is a rewarding, loving, forgiving God, and just get connected with a church, and you'll change your life. You'll change the priorities in your life. That's my final word.
I love that. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Angels and Demons podcast. Thank you, Dr. Bryan Hickox, for taking his time to share The Perfect Wave. What a gift. And what an amazing podcast is for you to encourage you every day throughout any difficult moments you might face. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. And until next time, we look forward to you listening to a very special guest we have coming up next week.
Angels and demons fighting in the deep end. I turn all my weakness into something I believe in. Every scar, every doubt, that's fuel when I speak. Welcome to the battle where the broken get free. Yeah.